a couple of our staff were meeting with a group outside of the organization, and they said, "Oh, we don't like working with you guys." And our staff, of course, very concerned, said, "Why?" "Because you work too hard to keep families together." That's a wonderful commentary 40 years later of what we're doing.
What up, though, Black Fridays family? Welcome back to another installment of the Black Fridays podcast. Today, very essential episode because I have somebody here who is all about the development of Black families. I have Miss Kenyatta Stephens. How are you today?
Well, what up, Doe?
What up, Doe? Love it, love it. What a excellent way to start off the podcast. And you are the CEO of Black Family Development Incorporated here in Detroit, Michigan, and would love for you to be able to invite us into what Black family development looks like and the background and history of the organization.
Sure, will do. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your show and all that you do for this community.
Thank you.
Black Family Development was started in 1978. So what do? We essentially are a comprehensive family counseling service agency. We provide wraparound services. We started, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but we started really because social workers in the city of Detroit committed to this community, committed to families. They actually asked consumers back in the 70s what needed to change about human services in Detroit. And those families who responded were their inspiration for change. So they really were sitting in a living room, took all of that feedback, and then they took their ideas and partnered with the National Association of Black Social Workers, who at the time had encouraged social workers around the country, around the United States, to really invest and find ways to start nonprofits that were led and managed by people of color, for people of color. And so the Detroit social workers took the ideas that residents had about 24-hour accessibility, being seen as someone of importance and power when you walk in a door versus someone who has a need only, and really making sure services were accessible. People could get there. And they took that idea and they married it with seed money from the National Association, and out popped Black Family Development. I don't want to make light of it. It wasn't that easy. Right. They had to work and secure funding, and they did. Their initial funding was through the Department of Health and Human Services, because their first objective was to address the disproportionality in which children of color were being taken out of families. And they wanted to bring that to a close, stop that, mitigate that. Well, fast forward all of these years, 40 plus years later, we're still in that same fight. And we actually received a compliment, which was probably intended to be a criticism. But about a year and a half ago, a couple of our staff were meeting with a group outside of the organization. And they said, "Oh, we don't like working with you guys." And our staff, of course, very concerned, said, "Why?" "Because you work too hard to keep families together." That's a wonderful commentary 40 years later of what we're doing.
Right. And in terms of the services that you all offer at current day,
yes.
What does that look like, and how are you being able to support that fight?
Great question. We have a $19 million designated budget. That means that certain funders put in resources so that we can provide certain services. We take about 20 programs and we divide them into 7 pillars. Those 7 pillars, the largest funded would be juvenile justice. And so we have 4 levels of care. We start with prevention. We don't want any kid to be in a formal juvenile service. And so we really focus on prevention. We even have a diversion program that we do in concert with the prosecutor's office. Maybe a young man steals a loaf of bread because they're hungry, right? Mm-hmm. Prosecutor says, "Look, you've never gotten in trouble before. I know you're a good kid, and I understand why you wanted to feed your siblings. We'll put you in a program. You complete that program, we'll wash your record clean." That's diversion. An example of prevention, well, I think that's pretty explanatory. Maybe the siblings of that young man are in that service, so that they hopefully can be connected to resources and never need resources outside of their family system and informal services again. We have services all the way up to adjudicated youth. I mentioned child family preservation services, early childhood services. You know what we really want? We want to work with families to help foster brain development. Our Black boys and girls are brilliant. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working with outside partners who have technology that help us foster language development with families. Mm-hmm. We have programs such as Boys and Men of Color. And so we move from early childhood to school age young people in schools, and some of them we engage in specific programming to really foster development emotionally, financially, career-wise for Black young men and boys of color. And then we provide behavioral health services from mental health prevention. Too many of our kids are saying, I'm stressed. They're thinking about self-medicating with marijuana because it's on the corner. And we say, hey, let's talk about some other ways, right? Because that's going to impact your life when you try to get a job if you aren't clean, right? Mm-hmm. And all the way to suicide prevention, doing that with athletes in the city of Detroit so that they have other ways of kind of walking through what they're dealing with. And substance abuse services for those who really need treatment. We are now moving into physical health services. That's exciting for us. Mm-hmm. Debbie Stabenow's office awarded our agency as one of 3 last year in the state of Michigan to now receive what's called a Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic designation, opportunity to be designated. So we can provide physical health services now to our families as well. I came from the model in the 1990s where when you went to nonprofits, you went to a one-stop shop.
Right.
It's a little different now. But I think the idea when serving the Black family is that there's so many rich nuances to who we are as a people. And if we can come to an agency, create an agency where if young people want to do something fun that they've never done before, there's youth development. If they have needs that are discovered and they're trying to figure out how to handle all these feelings, well, there's a service for them. And so, we won't be everything to everybody. Mm-hmm. But for those core services that we have, it's important that we really represent families, mm-hmm. partner with families, and we augment their strengths.
Love it. Love it. All phenomenal work that you all have been doing, and all very important needs, especially being able to keep that nucleus of the Black family mm-hmm. together and keep those essential members of the household together mm-hmm. and continuing that work. So definitely have more questions for you as we dig a little bit deeper into that. But I'll introduce you to my favorite part of Black Fridays, which is Freestyle Fridays. So I hope you came ready to rap or do a poem or to sing a little bit. Whatever you can do for us.
All right. No problem. Your listeners might want to put on their earplugs first before I start to sing and rap, but I'm game.
All right. So I'll spare you a little bit because it's just a random assortment of questions. You don't have to rap or sing or give us any poetry. Yeah. So it's just rapid fire questions and they're all about you. And I just ask that you answer each one and answer honestly.
All right.
All right. So first one, I would love to know, do you have a song right now that you have in rotation or a favorite album?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have been thinking about the song Amazing because when I think about, for me, my faith and all those things that have come about in my personal and professional life, Amazing is a song that keeps coming to mind because I'm grateful for my Creator mm-hmm. and all that He's been doing in areas that I've seen in my life.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Do you have a go-to movie?
Oh, a go-to movie. That's a good one. If I had a go-to movie, it would be, gosh, I love so many. You know what's silly? I actually love the Jurassic Park series. Really? Now the original or the redo? No, the original. Okay, all right. I know it's crazy between that and Transformers because they're movies that have action that I can get into, and there are parts that are funny that I can laugh, and so it gives me a combination of that little bit of comedy and a little bit of action and a little bit of drama.
I like that. Are you a fan of Coney Island by chance?
Yeah, I like Coney Islands, but hey, I could throw out the Coney dogs, and you get me some chicken fingers or some fried fish, and I'll be real happy.
Okay, perfect. So I was going to ask you what was your order. you gave it to me, so that was perfect.
And for all those health food folks, I'll say in a side salad.
Right, in a Diet Coke.
You
can't forget the Diet Coke. And you have mentioned to me that you have 3 boys.
I do.
So you got to pick one. Which one is your favorite?
No,
don't do that.
Yeah, okay. All 3 of them. There we go. Plus my husband.
Okay, there you go. So that's the perfect answer. I was gonna say don't do it because it was a trick question, but yeah, you had the perfect answer ready for sure.
Yeah.
And do you have a motivational quote or saying phrase that you live by?
Yes, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Perfect.
Yes.
Excellent. So you passed Freestyle Friday. Yeah,
Thank you.
That was easy money. It was a little too easy.
Thank you. Well, if we need to go back, I can always sing "We Are Family" if you want. But
okay.
Again,
all right.
People be covering their ears. But
we might say that for the end. Stay tuned. So I would love to be able to know, you gave us the history of Black family development and also the services and initiatives that you all provide in the community. I would love to be able to know, what about Kenyatta? What was your background, and then what led you to being a part of Black family development?
Well, I tell you, I never thought I would have this privilege to serve in Detroit and really in partnership with men and women who come to BFDI every day. My story started on American. I was born in Hutzel Hospital, and my parents were renting a flat from my maternal grandparents. And then from there, I think that there was this, I really believe in some ways it was so unspoken, partly because of the generation, the age that my parents were and the times that they lived in. But in many ways, originally was an unspoken determination, became a spoken and verbalized determination that my parents were going to do whatever it took in partnership with their extended family to give their 4 children, I'm the oldest of 4, opportunities to experience a world for the purpose of creating and being a part of a world that they didn't have access to. And they wanted us to be the conduits to open doors for other people. And so through a series of transitions and schools, ultimately, I was blessed to go to college at the University of Michigan, your alma mater as well.
I was going to say, I knew I liked you.
Yeah. And from that opportunity, went out to graduate school out on the East. And while I was out East pursuing my master's, I realized that my heartbeat was so evident living and watching and looking around in Philadelphia and seeing both the similarities and the differences in Detroit, and said, I really want to understand what best practice looks like in human services. Why? Because I came from an environment growing up when I graduated from high school, in my senior year, I believe it was my senior year, the entire football team was put into substance abuse rehab. And while they were there, they had all of their books provided, all of the things that they needed to complete their credits, and they graduated on time, despite being for several months away from the school environment. And I knew then that if those football players looked different, if they looked like me, that would not have been their reality.
Right.
So fast forwarding to graduate school, I thought I need to understand what best practice would look like for people who look like me, who might be in an urban community. And at that time, I began to start my thesis, and there was one book. It was called Black Families in Therapy, one book. And I said, well, I'm so grateful for that one book, but there's got to be an entire genre of services that we have yet to discover. And so after graduate school, I worked for about 3.5 to 4 years in Ann Arbor, and I was at a state meeting. And at that meeting, my supervisor, and I had this hunger. I wanted to work in the city, loved and was grateful for what I was able to do, provided therapy on the go while I was literally in U-Hauls, moving families who were fleeing domestic violence, finding IDs, and doing whatever we needed and talking about sobriety and mental health challenges all at the same time. But I wanted to be in the city. So at this state meeting, fast forward 3.5 years later, 4 years later, my supervisor at this state meeting, somewhere in the middle of the state, we were listening to job offers, job opportunities or openings that they were broadcasting across the state in a similar kind of human service environment. And my supervisor looked at me and she said, "Do you want that job?" And I said, "Do you want to get rid of me?" And she took me, she and I went down. I said, "Yeah, I'm interested." Met with somebody who literally worked at Black Family Development, was looking for someone to fill a position, and said, "When can you come in?" I told them the date. A couple of days later, I was in her office. I sat down, prepared for interview questions. And essentially she said, "When can you start?" Because what I did not know is she had already done her background work, right? And there had already been discussions. And so I was so grateful because that was 1997 and I'm still there. And so through different trajectories and opportunities, my predecessor, Alice Thompson, I worked with her for 20 years. And I'm so grateful because she gave me the opportunity to mobilize what was one book, which was Black Families in Therapy, to create programming where I learned about wraparound as an evidence-based practice. I learned about multi-systemic therapy as an evidence-based practice and cognitive behavioral therapy and so many other kinds of supports that families need that aren't rooted just in mental health treatment, but gave me a place to land and then allowed me to grow and participate in building what is now an organization that does so many different things. And I'm just honored to be a part of it. And because of my love for Detroit, my love for Black families, and just love for our organization, every day is a gift that I get to partner with the men and women who show up every day. These are folks like you who have achieved, multiple degrees, who choose to go literally into homes or community centers or schools in order to make a difference by partnering with families. And that's an honor every day to be a part of that process.
What I love most about everything that you just said was you knowing that you had a knack for wanting to work in the city and improve the city. And then no matter where your journey took you, I know you said you were in Philly for a little bit and then also in Ann Arbor. You said, I got to get back and I got to be able to do this for the city of Detroit, which is amazing and definitely dear to my heart, something that I am always a proponent of. Even if people leave, my whole mission was to be able to leave at some point and be able to bring my learnings back to the city and being able to incorporate that into the things that I do to be able to help and improve the city and in whatever way that I could. So I definitely identify with that. And I think that that's extremely amazing. And curious, your journey. So you've been at Black Family Development since 1997. Yes. In terms of your growth and experience throughout that time, what are some projects, initiatives, or things that kind of stand out in your mind that you were really proud to be a part of or to initiate or to support during your time there?
Great. I think the first that comes to mind is restorative practices. Restorative practices is a social science that looks at building community and repairing harm. So that stands out and resonates to me because we have been involved over the myriad of about, almost 10 years now of providing training through a subsidiary that our former CEO started. So we provide training nationally and locally. But restorative practices, I think, is most important because there's been a lot of personal learning that's come out of that. What we've learned is that, and we knew it, but this social science solidifies it for us, that people are their own experts. And they're more inclined to bring about whatever changes are needed in their life if you do things with them and not for or to them. And so that's significant because we never walk into a situation, we try at least as an organization, whether it's a business meeting with a partner in the community or working with a neighborhood or working with an individual and or family, to come into the space believing that we are the experts. Yeah. If you do, then you'll fail. One, people see right through that, number one. Number two, you really haven't opened up the space for a shared experience together to learn together. And so restorative practices really provides, I think, that forum for people to come in and create commonality from the get-go with an opening question and a closing question, which really is intended from beginning to end of that interaction to learn and grow from one another and create collective solutions for success. That's one thing. I think the second thing is really working in neighborhoods. Community development is a component of what we do. And working with neighborhoods in Detroit, the Cody Rouge community neighborhood, the Denby, Osborne neighborhoods, that is tremendous because it's allowing us to engage in shared learning. We learn about what is important to residents in the city, not because we come in knowing it, but we ask. We want to know, where is it that we can be of benefit? If we come in thinking that we know the answers, not only are we wrong, but we're more likely to do harm. Mm-hmm. I think the third thing I'll say is the opportunity to work with the City of Detroit, the Mayor's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, and some of the work that's happening in this One Detroit model to help restore and rebuild communities and helping to mitigate the crime in the city. We're a small portion of that, but just bringing in the idea that Dawn Eisen has to bring in a nonprofit whose really goal is to bring resources and bring supports to people who are returning citizens and their families. That's an honor to be a part of that process because we think it's part of the mobilizing of change that Detroit is really now has some real national records in terms of reducing crime.
Yep.
But it's not just the record. It's the fact that the U.S. Attorney, the mayor and deputy mayor and the police chief are taking an approach that people matter. They really matter. And I'll just give a little plug for the Peacenik that's happening this weekend at O'Hare Park. So those of your listeners who are in the city, come on out and join us for the Peacenik this Saturday from 3 to 7.
Love it. And that's phenomenal to be able to actually get input and buy-in from the communities that you all work with and enter, instead of, like you said, entering the conversation thinking that you know everything and you have a solution, which I think that unfortunately with the changes that we've seen with the city over the years and things that's happening in present day, there is a lot of that. And my personal opinion, feel like that the people who have been here, the communities that have been here for decades and the people in them, they're being forgotten about in a lot of these things. And it's kind of, it's not necessarily being built for them, but to be able to have initiatives where you actually care about the input of those in the community and figuring out, asking them what do they need versus just, oh, well, here you go, here's some random resources or some things that we think you need. Mm-hmm. I think that makes a world of difference. And speaking of that, for thinking about our young folks in the next generation, which is something I always try to keep top of mind, to make sure that we invest in them to, be able to improve their futures and all of our futures, because they're our next leaders. They're the ones that's next up. That's you mentioned a lot of resources that are able to help out our young folks as well. And just wanted to know, in terms of, or I really want to get your thoughts. I've had a few guests talk about how they are able to work with young people and put an emphasis on young people because, especially in Detroit, because granted, you don't know what someone's home situation is essentially. And it could be so many different factors dealing with them. And like you said, our young people are brilliant and they're capable, more than capable to do things. But when you have so many other outside elements blocking some of your potential, that can get muddy at times. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on and let us know, give us some insights on how Black family development is helping to aid with some of that. And then also, how can our young folks and the people who are raising these young folks or are involved in their lives be able to help them overcome those things? Because it's so many things that could be bothering them and interfering with their future and their education.
Absolutely. School is really supposed to be a safety zone where for many of our young people, they know that they can get, and this is not everybody, but for those who need it, they have food.
Yep.
They're safe because the administration makes sure that safety is paramount for them. It's a place where there should be an exchange of ideas so that they know that, they got to do homework. Nobody wants to do homework. But often teachers ask questions that really foster learning and development. But sometimes those young people, while they go to school and it's a safe place, they can't help but bring with them things that happened at home or before they got to school, or worries about when it's going to happen when they exit school. And so sometimes not everybody has the words to express what they've walked through or what they're walking through currently. And so our role in the schools with young people is to provide a safe space where sometimes we can be a listening ear. And they have a chance to share what they're experiencing, what's happening. And sometimes that's after maybe there's been a disagreement in a classroom and they've been put out, not because they're bad kids, but because they're going through some bad circumstances. And it's hard to explain some of those circumstances in words, right, that other people can receive and that they even know how to express. So sometimes in the schools, what our role is to support as a bridge between the teachers, administration, and the students. everybody has good intentions. And so sometimes we're an interpreter, if for lack of a better term, because the school has to maintain boundaries and standards and the young people have to learn. But sometimes when circumstances outside of the building come in, they can create a mess that no one intended. And so our goal is to help reduce expulsions, suspensions, and do so in a way that creates and fosters a restorative culture so that young people can stay in school, teachers can teach, and administrators can still maintain a secure building. I think the other thing that's important for us is to, and I mentioned the One Detroit piece, but one of the other aspects that we do is we've been leading recently a youth town hall where we bring in students, amazing, brilliant young people, some of whom are in middle school or high school, some of whom are in college, some of whom are young professionals. And they literally engage us with their brain trust. We'll ask questions about, what would make a Detroit a safer place to grow and dream? And they impart to us wisdom. And at our last meeting, both the deputy mayor and the U.S. attorney were literally present with them because those individuals are focused on rebuilding this Detroit in a place that is safe for young people so that they can achieve their talents. We love partners who have amazing resources that, help connect and grow young people so that they can be all that they need to do and be, whether it's looking at young people who said, hey, when college isn't for me, maybe we need to look at, focus hope opportunities, right? That may be perfect skilled trades opportunities. Maybe it's referrals to boys and girls clubs, for outlets that are safe and affordable for young people. That's our job, I think, through partnerships and case management services to link young people and families with resources that are safe. I think the last thing that sometimes we wind up doing is I use an interpreter or being a translator. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's even amongst families, right? Because when feelings are hurt, we struggle to communicate. And we have moms, dads, uncles, great-grandparents who love the young people in their family, in their lives that they live with every day. But sometimes those hurts are blockades to being able to speak the same language together. And so I think that our staff are experts in figuring out ways to do that across our program services, because our goal is to keep families together, keep them safe, but keep them together and allow them, as one of our core values says, to excel beyond crises.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. And with you having the position that you have, being the CEO, I would love to be able to understand what does a day in the life look like for you in terms of, if you could share with us some of your responsibilities, what does that look like running such a phenomenal organization that's been going on for decades, and then knowing, being able to continue to carry that, that level of excellence in terms of service and what's provided to the community. What is that like for you? What does a day in the life look like for you? And what are some of the things that you all are working on at the moment that you can share?
Right, great. So, at a high level, it's cultivating relationships, really looking at potential and current funder relationships and continuing to massage those. It's looking at key performance indicators to make sure, and helping staff to set key performance indicators, because nonprofits are businesses first, right? They're financial entities that have the blessing of not worrying necessarily about, profit, but yet still maintaining the bottom line. And so, it's looking at budgets. Where are we? Are we fulfilling our contracts? But more importantly, those cultivating relationships is important, because we're taking those key performance indicators, which is really data. It's how we're performing, but we're learning to communicate in ways that funders, whether they're on the for-profit side of the sector, or there are, familiar grant writing entities like the foundations, so that we can communicate what we're doing and how we're doing it well in a language that, the grant writing, grant funding, philanthropy community, or the for-profit community can understand. I think in this last kind of year to 2 year period, a lot of those cultivation contacts have typically been around, grant making entities like the private foundations, the Kellogg's, the Kresge's, those that Skillman's, those that many are familiar with. We have spent a good amount of our time now really broadening into the for-profit partnership arena. And that's important because in the nonprofit space, when you look at federal, local, state grants, there's been a slight attrition in terms of the scope, breadth of those contracts. What used to be federal contracts that would come for $4 million, $3 million a year are now sometimes just $1 million, a year. Maybe it's still 3, 4, or 5 years. But there really needs to be a way for us to think about revenue generating arms that do not drift away from our mission, but are now in partnerships with not only philanthropy, but the profit sector that really does want to invest, for example, in children,
right,
or want to invest in workforce development, or want to invest in suicide prevention. Mm-hmm. There's a way to move forward in that alignment. And so that's what a lot of my day now is taken up doing to sustain the work and to, in partnership with my leadership team, strategically always examining our strategic plan in ways that are contemporary, that allow us to continue to expand on the mission in ways that we should expand, and then make some decisions about where we may need not to expand.
Yeah.
But continue to support the families in this community.
Love it. And a question, as somebody who has had a nonprofit or has a nonprofit, I would love to get your opinion on, or what is you all structure in terms of vetting out partnerships? Because, that could be a dicey lane, especially at the level that you all are dealing with, because you have folks that obviously, there may be some hidden agendas or things like that, or people who don't fully align with what you do, but, they're trying to help and intertwine with what you all have going on. But we'd love to know, how do you all currently vet out partners, or what's some non-negotiables in terms of partnerships when you work with folks?
Good question. People tell you who they are, right? Individuals have track records. And so whether you're talking about a private philanthropy group, an individual who wants to be an investor, or, a corporation, they have track records. And so it's really doing that research to really understand who have they partnered with them before, and what has been the outcome, successful, hopefully, outcome of that partnership. Not all partnerships are successful. Mm-hmm. And so if a previous partnership hasn't been successful, that's not an immediate reason not to partner, but asking why and what were those barriers. We also love partners that not only have a successful track record in areas that pertain to our mission, but they're willing to grow and they're willing to listen first. I think some of our best partners are partners who recognize the brain trust in the community. And when we're responsive to what community is sharing with us, there's always greater potential for positive change.
Love that, especially the aspect of, like you said, everybody has track records. I mean, you can do your due diligence and figure out what will be good for you and what's beneficial for you as well. But then also making sure that you have those standards on the back end in continuing partnerships or not continuing partnerships in some cases. And I'm very interested to know, at your level, what is it like being able to lead in the group of folks that you work with each and every day, and being able to kind of enable them to do the wonderful things that you all do at Black Family Development?
It's humbling. And I say that because in order to be effective, and sometimes I err, it for me lands in and begins with and ends with my faith. It's a place where I get up in the morning and really try to do a self-examination of, in what areas do I need to improve? What did I say yesterday that I probably shouldn't have said? And really trying to make amends in those areas first. And then really spending time in quiet meditation about what is best in the next direction for the agency. You are correct in that in any given day, the multiple stimuli that come in terms of opportunities or even sometimes, critical needs and incidences that come in, they keep you moving and keep you going. And I think the tendency of leadership sometimes is to keep busy. And so we keep busy because of things that happen in a course of a day, or relationships or new opportunities that come about. They're all essential. But I've also learned the importance of being still. And that is a difficult discipline to have. But it's sometimes in those still moments that still small voice gives me direction about what to do next or what to fix or what to encourage somebody else to do. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that the reason I would say is that it's humbling is that I learn because I like to listen and I ask questions about the folks who work around me. And so that's what helps me to learn about what would be a progressive work environment for people to want to stay in. We have someone in our staff who, as of this month, has been there 30 years. And we have others who are very new who come in. And so there's always a listening process that I must undertake to understand what makes a conducive, upwardly mobile work environment for those who have been here long time and in the trenches, and those who are new arrivals to the agency but want to stay. Mm-hmm. And so it's really understanding how to craft in the current workforce marketplace an environment that works well to achieve our mission, remain in budget, advance in areas that keep us sustainable and relevant, and yet still provide an environment that people want to come to work in every day in order to help other people in partnership with residents. Absolutely.
And in the term or the time frame since you've been at Black Family Development, what essentially keeps you there? Because I know that you all can deal with some heavy situations, like it's not all lollipops and sunshines in terms of the work that you're trying to do in the city with different organizations, with the community. So I'm wondering what's your motor that keeps you going to want to continue to do this work every day, especially as long as you have with Black Family Development specifically?
So I'm a data nerd and a soft hearty. And so if I think about the left side of my brain, that's a data nerd, I love the fact that we work with children who are, I don't like the term, but they're severely emotionally disturbed. That means they've seen a lot of things that you and I should never have to see ourselves as adults, let alone as kids, right?
Right.
And when those young people that came to our clinic, we had about 300 people last year, young people individually that we served. 97% of them, even though those are the kids who are the most acute, 97% of them stayed at home. We were able to keep them home with families versus putting them in hospitals or out of home care. Mm-hmm. That says a lot. The other part of my data nerd says we served 12,000 kids in schools, and those kids were able to stay in school and get help and work with their families. We were able to, of all the kids that we served in juvenile justice, and we've been serving in juvenile justice now for almost 25 years, 97% of those kids were able to stay in our services and not A, reoffend with a felony, or B, progress on to the adult system. The other side of my head, or my head is I'm a softie. And so I love getting the story from the mom who was leaving one state because of being pursued by her assailant. And she and her son have replanted themselves here in Michigan. And as a thank you to our incredible staff that helped relocate her into housing, she sung a song to us that we were able to share with our board of directors as an appreciation of thanks. When the crisis in E-Course happened, unfortunately, a couple months ago, and families were distressed, we had families who said, okay, I can tell my story and I can find safety with our staff and our mobile health team that was right there on the spot, ready to help. The relationships we have with principals and school districts who say, yeah, we're glad they're part of our school and they're part of our partnerships because we're seeing young people's lives change. Those heartwarming stories, including the story wherein people said that, our staff worked too hard to keep families together. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. We have a staff person that's actually being recognized next week by the state of Michigan because there were families in this one program where we're supposed to be assisting with either reunification or just supportive visitation. 50% of those families have unified after coming to work with us. And that's while they're in service. We have another almost 25% that reunify after our service as a result of the intervention. Mm-hmm. Seeing those moms and dads and hugging their kids and saying, you can come home now, my heart melts. That's what keeps me going every day. My goal is that the 3 young men that I have in my life that I am so privileged for my husband and I to help raise, that I see them as a filter behind why I do this every day. My goal is that every one of those young people that we serve have access to resources that are on par with the resources that our boys have access to. And I will keep working until that happens.
That's amazing. That's some wonderful stuff, and an excellent source of motivation for sure. And do you have any words of encouragement for folks who may want to get in nonprofit work or maybe potentially discouraged because of, the stigma is there's no real money in nonprofit, or there's no real opportunities to elevate depending on where you go, things like that may discourage you from what your true passion lies in? Do you have any words of encouragement to tell them or get them into doing the work that their heart desires?
Sure. Follow your calling. I believe that when you follow your calling, that those doors of opportunity and resources will be open to you. We are an agency, for example, anyone who's interested, and we have some openings. We are an agency that believes in upward mobility. We believe in education. We believe in change. And when you have a desire to follow your calling and you surround yourself with people who have the same personal mission as you, and you plant yourself in an organization, doesn't have to be ours, it can be any organization that aligns with your personal mission, there will be such a richness of fulfilling that we are aware of people who have had funds and no lack of annual income, but without the fulfillment, it begins to lack. Find yourself a place that you can follow your calling, align yourself with people who have a shared passion in an organization that has alignment with that and allows you to fulfill that passion. And your reward will wind up opening doors of opportunity that you never imagined. Live out your dream and live it to make the world a better place for other people, and you will be blessed.
So do I need to pass around a collection plate? Or can you just preach the word, preach the mini sermon there. So we appreciate it. So the good thing is you had shared some good news with us before we start recording, that you all are growing, which is amazing, and all for good reasons. Could you tell us more about that and opportunities that you all have? Absolutely.
We have been recently afforded 4 large grants to really make a multi-year commitments to improving families in partnership with families. And so each of these grants in the areas of early childhood or physical health services, or mental health services in schools, allow us to bring residents on board that help inform how the services should look. But we are looking for individuals who have a passion for serving. Particularly, there's a national shortage for individuals who are licensed mental health practitioners. And so we want to put out a shout out to all of you who have chosen to go in that direction. We have plenty of openings in those areas. We are really looking for men and women who are young people with lived experience who want to contribute to this work, and others who have skills in the areas of quality or even IT that are willing to make a difference, because this organization really is on a mission for change and to support the change that's happening, the renaissance within the city, particularly for the residents of this city.
That's awesome. So for the people who want to help make that change, where can they get more information about this? How can they stay in contact with you or follow your journey? And do you have websites for us, social media handles, anything like that that you could share?
Absolutely. You can look us up at blackfamilydevelopment.org. We also are on Facebook, Instagram. We even have a TikTok channel. So look us up. For those of you who want to check out our website most explicitly, where you can get access to all of our social media handles on our website, it's www.blackfamilydevelopment.org. We even have an app, a Hope and Healing app that's available and accessible through the website as well. So if you're not sure if you need help, or you don't want to tell other people you need help, but do it kind of on the down low a little bit, you can use the app and we'll have someone reach out to you there as well. For those of you who just like the good old phone, there's always a reliability. If you can pick up that phone, you can call us at 313-758-0150. And someone is always there to answer the phone during office hours, generally from 8 to 5. Or you can again, stop on in. We're on East Grand Boulevard in Detroit. For those of you who are here in the city, we'd love to be of service.
That's amazing. And Kenyatta, this conversation has been amazing. The work that you all have been doing for decades is truly awesome. I'm grateful to be able to have a peek behind the curtain today as to the work that you do and your background and what gets you motivated and up out of bed every day to keep doing the work. So strongly encourage. I mean, I know you're going to keep doing it. I don't have to encourage you to continue to do it. However, I'm truly grateful for the services that you've been providing to the city, the young folks, and the community as a whole.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for all that you're doing and getting the word out. Black excellence is real, and you're here to shout it from the rooftops. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And everybody listening and watching, we'll tap in with y'all soon. Peace.